What if I told you that there's physical evidence of purgatory being real?
Is purgatory real? I don't know.
A burnt handprint, seared into wood, left behind by a soul in agony.
Hi. Last night, the question of purgatory came up.
This is an apparition that happened in
Foligno, Italy.
Hey, welcome back. This is our transition into our series now on purgatory. We're finished hell, Janelle.
Yeah, that was a lot of episodes. 10, I think, altogether.
Yeah. So, are you tired of hell? Let's move into purgatory.
There's at least hope in purgatory.
That's the thing. And introducing to you, if we haven't met before, this is our recent theologian in the Yazinski family, Louis. He's how many months now?
It's about 2.5.
2.5 months. Yeah. So we want to thank you for those of you who've been journeying with us. Thank you for all your comments. We want to thank you particularly our supporters. You know, what you've been watching is physically impossible to do without our monthly supporters, and so we want to thank you. And if you want to join our support team, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you haven't noticed, all our videos are free. And that's because we do have a support team that helps us monthly. You know, we're real people. We have a real family. We have real bills. So we'd be very grateful if you would partner with us in this mission to proclaim the beauty of the Catholic faith to a hurting world. Our mission is really to fortify people in their faith, and so we'd greatly appreciate that. If that's a possibility, you can head over to kenandjanelle.com. Thank you so much for the consideration. Now, this story is about a soul that has come back to a certain place from purgatory. Now, some might be wondering, is this actually even possible? Well, St. Thomas Aquinas thought it was.
St. Thomas Aquinas states, "It is also credible that this may occur sometimes to the damned, and that for man's instruction and intimidation they be permitted to appear to the living, or again in order to seek our suffrages, as to those who are detained in purgatory." In 1859, something extraordinary happened in a convent near Assisi, Italy. A nun named Sister Teresa Gesta, who had lived a holy life, appeared after her death in a terrifying way. This event caused a lot of talk in the area, and after an investigation, it was confirmed as true.
Sister Teresa was known as a faithful nun. She was in charge of the novices in her community, and she was also in charge of the sacred things in the sacristy. And she did this for a long time, faithfully. Her spiritual director commented on what he thought was her level of sanctity. Then on November 4th, 1859, she suddenly died from a stroke.
12 days later, on November 16th, another nun, Sister Anna Felicia, who had taken over Teresa's duties, went to the sacristy. As she approached, she heard moaning coming from inside. She hesitated, but finally opened the door. There was no one there. Yet the moaning continued, growing louder and clearer. Although normally brave, Sister Anna Felicia felt terrified. "Jesus, Mary," she cried, "what can that be?" She had not finished speaking when she heard a plaintive voice accompanied with a painful sigh. "Oh my God, how I suffer." The sister, stupefied, immediately recognized the voice of poor Sister Teresa. Then the room was filled with a thick smoke, and the spirit of Sister Teresa appeared, moving towards the door and gliding along by the wall. Having reached the door, she cried aloud, "Behold, a proof of the mercy of God." Saying these words, she struck the upper panel of the door, and there left the print of her right hand, burnt in the wood as with red-hot iron. She then disappeared.
Sister Anna was terrified, and so she screamed. And the commotion drew the other sisters into the area, and when they came in, they noticed the smell of something burnt. Well, Sister Anna then explained what had happened and then showed them the burnt handprint, and they were shocked because the handprint was small, just like Sister Teresa's hand. So filled with fear and conviction, they went to the chapel to pray for her soul. And the next day, they also received Holy Communion and offered the graces for her release from purgatory. And the story began to spread in the area, and other people began to pray for Sister Teresa's soul. Then 2 days later, a second vision happened.
On the third day, November 18th, Sister Anna Felicia, on going in the evening to her cell, heard herself called by her name and recognized perfectly the voice of Sister Teresa. At the same instant, a globe of brilliant light appeared before her, illuminating her cell with the brightness of daylight. She then heard Sister Teresa pronounce these words in a joyful and triumphant voice. I died on a Friday, the day of the Passion, and behold, on a Friday, I enter into eternal glory. Be strong to bear the cross, be courageous to suffer, love poverty.
Then on November 23rd, 1859, a few days later, an official investigation happened where they opened up the coffin of Sister Teresa and made note of the size of her hand and the burnt handprint, and it matched. Now you might be listening to this and think, oh, did this really happen? Is this really a trustworthy story? Well, now I want to draw your attention to something that might help validate the story, and that is to Monsignor Seigneur. Did I pronounce that right?
I say Ségur.
Ségur, okay, thanks. And we mentioned him on Ash Wednesday. He's a well-known bishop in France in the 1800s, wrote extensively. We drew attention to his book called
L'Enfer.
And at the beginning of his book, he has a personal endorsement from Pope Pius IX. So this Monsignor, this Archbishop, was trusted by, and at least enough by the Pope at the time, to get a personal endorsement from him in his book. Now, Monsignor writes about this 35 years later. It was then translated into English and put into something called the Sacred Heart Review, a publication that was distributed in the Boston area in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So that's how the story, I think, comes to us in English. This is what the Archbishop said about this event.
From the Sacred Heart Review from Monsignor Ségur, a canonical inquiry was opened immediately by the Bishop of Foligno and the magistrates of the city. November 23rd, in presence of a great number of witnesses, the tomb of Sister Teresa was opened, and the burnt imprint on the door was found exactly conformable to the hand of the dead sister. The result of the inquiry was an official judgment which confirmed the certainty and authenticity in every respect of what we have here related. The door with the burnt impression is preserved in the convent with veneration. The Mother Abbess, witness of the fact, has deigned to show it to me herself, and I repeat it, my companions of the pilgrimage and myself, we have seen and touched this wood, which witnesses in a manner so frightful that the souls which suffer in the other world are penetrated and burnt with fire.
So again, this comes from Monsignor Ségur, a highly respected man in France. This story then is put into a book called The Dogma of Purgatory by Father Choupet, who's also from France. But he adds some additional information in his book. And one, he contacted the actual bishop of that diocese to get information to confirm that the story was true, and that an investigation did take place, and that bishop from that area confirmed it. But also, he faxed Father Choupet an image of this burnt handprint. I did some research. Yes, faxes actually did exist. That technology started in the early mid-1800s. So it was new technology at the time. He got the image faxed, further validating this story. Now, what could have a nun done that deserved purgatory? Monsignor Ségur has some additional information in the Sacred Heart Review.
In one of her apparitions to Sister Felicia, Sister Teresa reveals, by his just and fearful decree, I was condemned to suffer during 40 years the terrible pains of purgatory by reason of the weakness I often showed towards some of our sisters. I thank you and your sisters for so many prayers, which in his goodness the Lord has deigned to apply exclusively to my poor soul, and especially for the 7 penitential psalms, which have done me so much good. Then, with a smiling face, she added, O blessed poverty, which procures so great a joy to all those who observe it faithfully. And she disappeared.
So what can we learn from this account? I think 3 things stand in my mind. Number 1, that purgatory is real. Number 2, that even the smallest sin has to be accounted for. And number 3, that our prayers for the suffering souls really do make a difference. So why don't you share with us below what stood out to you and why? And also, again, an invitation, if you would like to become a supporter of this work, we'd really appreciate it. You can head over to kenandjanelle.com for that opportunity. And so we'll end with a prayer.
Eternal Father, I offer Thee the most precious blood of Thy divine Son, Jesus, in union with the Masses said throughout the world today, for all the holy souls in purgatory, for sinners everywhere, for sinners in the universal church, those in my own home and within my family. Amen.